Welcome to EPODEX. In this video, we'll show you how to cast a river table with the epoxy resin from EPODEX. Before casting your river table, you'll need the following tools to build a mold: frame moldings and underbody in wood or polypropylene, silicone, screws, electric or hand screwdriver, the EPODEX separating tape, and the silicone-free EPODEX separating agent spray, a folding ruler and a spirit level, a pair of scissors, and a dust-free cloth or a kitchen roll. Build a mold in the desired dimensions of your table. For this, you can use 4 wooden strips and a wooden plate as moldings. The moldings should be smooth and without any texture to get a flat finish. Glue all parts with our EPODEX separating tape. The tape prevents the epoxy resin from bonding to the mold. Do not stick them overlapping, but lying next to each other, or with a small gap. This saves you time-consuming grinding work afterwards. Glue the edges of the molded parts with silicone and screw the parts together. Allow the silicone to cure. Spray the mold with EPODEX separating agent spray and distribute the agent evenly. The separating agent also prevents the epoxy resin from bonding to the mold. Place your wooden planks in the mold. Make sure that the wooden planks have the same height and are as evenly aligned as possible and in balance to minimize subsequent planing and sanding. For the casting, you need the EPODEX epoxy resin consisting of resin and hardener, a gram scale, mixing jug, a stir stick, a brush, nitrile gloves, as well as dyes and coloring agents on request. Before you start casting, we recommend priming the part of the wooden planks that comes into contact with the resin with epoxy resin. The epoxy resin primer seals the wood surface and prevents high material loss and bubble formation. You can determine the amount of epoxy resin you need with the help of our epoxy calculator. You can find it on every product page. Click on the button and enter the length, width, and height of the area to be coated or poured. For coatings and sealants, we recommend a layer thickness of 1/16 of an inch.
Our epoxy resins consist of resin and a hardener.
Weigh resin and hardener in the appropriate mixing ratio and mix both components together.
Thanks to our unique formula, all our epoxy resins allow bubble-free results.
However, to reduce the formation of air bubbles, we recommend holding the stir stick at the bottom or edge of the mixing jug and pouring it over it. Mix until the resin hardener mixture is free of streaks. Stir through the edge and bottom of the mixing jug, as resin or hardener will settle there. We recommend pouring the mixture into a clean mixing jug, then mixing again. This will ensure that the resin and hardener are completely mixed together. Apply the epoxy resin to the desired surface with a brush. Air chambers often form between the wooden planks and the subfloor, which can lead to unwanted bubbles and tension in the resin. Use epoxy resin and cast a thin layer of approximately 1/16 of an inch to close the air chambers. Allow the epoxy resin to cure until it is no longer sticky, and continue with the main coating in the same way. Do not scrape resin from the edge, as unmixed resin does not cure. The deep pour and casting kit allows you to cast heights of up to 2 inches in one pour, regardless of surface size, at a room temperature of about 70 degrees. If the room temperature is too high, the material can overheat, which leads to yellowing and cracking. If the room temperature is too low, the material can vent poorly, and the reaction stops completely, preventing the epoxy resin from curing. If you pour small areas or lower the room temperature, you can cast up to 12 inches thick at once. For higher layer thicknesses, you can also perform several casting processes considering the curing times. To color the main coating, mix the color powders or dyes with the resin or with the resin hardener mixture. Adjust the color intensity individually by adding more or fewer coloring agents. Cast the epoxy resin on the desired surface. Cast up to the upper edge of the wooden planks and allow the material to cure. If desired, you can cast a final transparent layer over the wooden planks. After about 3 days, you can take your table out of the mold. Remove all screw fittings, cut open the silicone, and knock out all molded parts. After demolding, you will need the following to grind, polish, and seal your river table: a fine dust mask, a grinding and polishing machine with attachments of, for example, 80 to 3,000 grits. Alternatively, you can use waterproof sandpaper and a sanding block. You will also need a polishing attachment and polishing paste as well as oil, wax, varnish, or a polyurethane resin to seal the surface. Grind the surface of your epoxy table. Start with a coarse grit of size 80, and then switch to final grits up to size 3000 or higher. Then, change to the buffing attachment and polish the surface to the desired gloss level. Screw the table legs to the tabletop. Seal the tabletop with oil, wax, varnish, or a suitable polyurethane resin. Enjoy processing our products. Your EPODEX team.